Okay, so I'm back. We're going to continue on. I had to find this because it's very complicated and hard to describe, so you have to bear with me. I'm going to read just a little bit, and it's quite confusing. If you get lost, I'm with you, brother. I don't. It's difficult to find. In here, the authors are talking about, and they're talking about the word most often translated Jew, Iodius, can be translated Judean. In fact, it is probably better translated to Judean. For many centuries, scholars and translators have treated the terms Judean and Jew as they were interchangeable. But the fact is, how the word should be translated depends on who's using it. You with me so far? Jew, Judean, depends on who's using it. Outsiders, Romans, at the time of Christ, and biblical scholars since, have used the terms Jew and Judeans interchangeably to apply to all people either of Israelite ancestry or adherence to Judaism. You see what I mean? Before I was talking about how Paul would group people together instead of in their region. And now here's a term that we're going to use, is that they're Judean or they're Jew. And actually there's a distinguish between the two of them. And the authors would go on and they talk about Jesus. And here's what they say about that. Again, bear with me. Here we go. Thus, Jesus is known as the son of Joseph, the carpenter's son, Jesus of Nazareth, the Galilee, Jesus of Galilee, Jesus of Nazareth. Though Jesus is identified a number of ways, carpenter's son, teacher, he is never identified as an Iodius, Ioudaos, Jew or Judean, except by outsiders. Remember, we're talking about Romans. He's never done it on his own. The Magi who traveled from the east to visit the boy Jesus, come looking for the King of the Jews, or Judeans. And that's in MT 2:2. I'm new to this, so I don't know what MT stands for, but it's MT 2:2. Pastor Chad, help me out, brother. What is MT? Matthew. Figured it out. Remember the Samaritan woman who goes to the well? Jesus is there. Thought he was Judean. The Romans who executed Jesus put a sign over his head, King of the Judeans, King of the Jews. Matthew 27:37, Mark 15:26, Luke 23:38. None of the countrymen called him that. Instead, they identified him as King of Israel. And the reason no Israelite ever called Jesus an Iodius or a Judean is simple. He wasn't one. Israelites refer to themselves collectively as Israelites. Michiganders are Michigander, Michigan's a Michigander, Ohio is Ohioans. See the correlation now? And so you have Paul describe himself. He said, I am an Israelite myself. Notice he didn't say I'm a Jew or a Judean. He says, I'm an Israelite myself, a descendant of Abraham from the tribe of Benjamin. In Romans 11:1, he says this. Luke, who is writing as a Roman audience, glosses over this distinction and uses a term as a Roman audience will understand. When Paul is arrested, remember he gets picked up, Luke cites Paul as saying, I am a Jew from Saurus, but calls himself a Jew. And so that's the problem that the authors are trying to distinguish, is that he's calling these other people, the Galatians, as barbarians. He goes on, there's one part in here where he's talking about the Uh, where is he talking? He's calling them dogs. it's, I just, he's just a crass individual when it comes to race. He didn't pull any punches. He calls them for what he's seen. He didn't like the Galatians. He thought they were loud. Yet it's interesting is that it was in the Galatia where he gets stoned and in that, and as soon as he recovers, he goes back to see how they're doing. So, is he being it to be mean? No, I'm thinking Paul was just not politically correct. How's that? He called him for what he wanted to call him. I don't think, and I really don't believe he was hateful. Maybe he got exasperated. But as for him being a racist, I really don't think I can agree with the authors or disagree with them. And I think and the authors make the point is that he's wanting the Gentiles. He was the apostle to the Gentiles. He wanted them to be with faith with Christ, and he gets frustrated at times because he's wanting to come and they're arguing with him, and I don't think he used a lot of tact. So I don't know that I'd call him a racist. I think he's more like he's Paul. I mean, so at the beginning of it, they say, listen, if you're going to use Paul as an example of how to approach people in groups, don't do that. And I don't believe that that's the case here. I think that more he was dealing in a time. I think he was not politically correct. I think if we were in today's days, he'd call that virus Chinese. It's a Chinese virus, and he'd be more concerned with healing people and bringing them to the faith than to be worried about is he angering the Galatians by calling them what he felt. So, like I said, this is a tough one. I'm really interested to see where Pastor Chad, maybe you can explain some of this going on in here. So, that's how I spent my afternoon trying to figure out, was Paul a racist? I don't think so. I think he was politically incorrect. And that's my thoughts. See you next time.